Greetings and thank you for joining us. I'd like to start off by introducing myself and my Actera colleagues. My name is Ariane Erickson and I'm the Carl Knapp GoEV Manager. I'm joined tonight by Linda Hutchins-Knowles, the Carl Knapp GoEV Senior Manager, and Irvin Rivero, our Climate Corps AmeriCorps Beneficial Electrification Fellow. So a little bit about Actera. We are a San Francisco Bay Area nonprofit that has been around since 1970. Our mission is to bring people together to create local solutions for a healthy planet. And our laser focus currently is on addressing climate change with a priority on equity. And you'll see in the lower left-hand corner of the screen, that is a photo of our staff. Additionally, I'd like to show you a photo of Carl Knapp, after whom our program is named. Carl Knapp was a Stanford professor, a renewable energy expert, an EV advocate, and an all-around Earth champion. And we are honored to name our program the Carl Knapp GoEV program. So what does our program do? First of all, we have a host of volunteer EV owners that we call our EV ambassadors, some of whom are here tonight, and I will introduce them to you shortly. They generously loan us their time and their expertise to help educate individuals and provide guidance and encouragement for future EV adopters. We also provide EV consultations for anyone who needs one-on-one guidance on how to go EV. We have EV advocacy efforts, which we will talk a little bit more about later. And we have a lot of educational outreach events, including the one that you are here participating in this evening. So before we begin, I would like to introduce and thank our event partners. Our presenting sponsor tonight is the city of Sunnyvale, and this workshop is a part of Sunnyvale's Drive Electric program. Our drawing sponsor is PowerFlex, and our event partner is Sunnyvale Public Library. And now I'd like to introduce you to Shannon Keener from the city of Sunnyvale, who will open tonight's program. Shannon?
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Shannon Keener, and I am an environmental program specialist with the city of Sunnyvale. I want to take a moment to thank you all for joining this webinar to learn more about EVs. Currently, nearly half of the greenhouse gas emissions that are released in Sunnyvale are from transportation. In order to reach our overarching greenhouse gas reduction target of 56% below the 1990 levels by 2030, we need to reduce emissions from cars. To do so, one of the goals in our climate action playbook is to have 20% of all on-road vehicles be zero emission vehicles by 2030. As of today, 5.8% of vehicles in Sunnyvale are zero emission. Tonight, we will hear about EVs, how to charge EVs, and which models are on the market. We hope that this will support and encourage you to make your next car purchase an EV. Thank you again for taking the time to join us for this talk. We'll go to the next slide. We would also like to take a moment to invite you to another Sunnyvale Drive Electric event. On April 9th, we will be hosting our Ride into Earth Month event at the Sunnyvale Community Center. This will be an in-person event from 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock. There will be opportunities to explore a wide variety of EVs, and you can take one for a test drive. Also have all your questions answered by EV experts. We will have a variety of different makes and models to choose from, so you can take around the block. This Earth Month event will also showcase ways to be sustainable throughout the rest of the month and the year. There will be booths including composting, the food cycle program, zero waste induction cooking, and updates on our climate action playbook. So thank you all again for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Shannon. I'd also like to talk about another event that's coming up in March that is a complement to this EV 101 workshop. At our EV financial incentives clinics, we take a deep dive into the many additional rebates and grants that are available to income qualifying residents. So if you are on a fixed budget or you think that you may not be able to afford an electric vehicle, this is the workshop for you. And now let's review our agenda for this evening. We'll start with a presentation that, as Shannon mentioned, will cover the benefits of electric vehicles, how to charge an EV, financial incentives that are available for purchasing an EV, and a few of the currently available models. The presentation will be followed by a breakout room session, and this is when you can ask questions about specific makes and models or any other general question that you might have about EV ownership. So the breakout room sessions will last for about half an hour, and they will conclude between 8:15 and 8:30. But you can leave the breakout rooms and the meeting, the event itself, at any time, because there will be no additional content that will be provided after the breakout room sessions. So that will be the formal end of the program. Immediately after the end of the program, we will email you a link to our post-event survey. And we really hope that you'll take just a few moments to complete the survey to give us important, valuable feedback that we'll use to make our future presentations even better. And if you do participate in the survey, you will automatically be entered into our drawing for a brand new level 2 home charger, which is valued at $600 and provided courtesy of PowerFlex. And now briefly, some protocol before we begin. I'd like to let you know that this session is being recorded. You may turn your video camera off or on at any time. We do ask that you please stay muted until the breakout session. And please, throughout this presentation, please feel free to ask questions in the chat box at any time, and our EV ambassadors will provide written answers as we go. So speaking of our EV ambassadors, I would like to introduce them to you now. Together, they have many years of experience as EV drivers, and they're here to answer any questions you may have as we proceed through the slides. And as I mentioned, at the end of the presentation, you'll have the opportunity to visit their breakout rooms and ask them questions about makes and models and how to charge and incentives, etc. So specifically, we are joined tonight by Anne, Brennan, and Tom, and they will be answering your questions about Tesla models. We also have Chris, Wiley, and Rick, and they will be in the breakout room to answer questions about all other models. And then we have Joe and Jane, and if you have any general questions, they are the ones that will answer those in the general questions breakout room. Shannon Keener from the City of Sunnyvale will be answering questions about the City of Sunnyvale's Drive Electric program. And she will be joined by Maggie Berry and Jin Zhu from the Center for Sustainable Energy. And this entity administers California's clean vehicle rebate. So they will be happy to answer any questions you may have about the clean vehicle rebate program, otherwise known as the California EV rebate. And finally, we have Greg and Al Bastonmare from Greenlight Auto Wholesale. And they will be talking about plug-in hybrids and buying used EVs. So let's begin. Before we dive into everything EV, we really do have to start with kind of a disclaimer, so to speak, about the state of the market, because it's really an important piece of your journey towards becoming an EV owner. So what has happened is this 2-year pandemic has caused a semiconductor chip shortage, as you probably are aware of, as well as numerous other supply chain disruptions. And that has caused a scarcity in all passenger vehicles, including electric vehicles. So what this means is release dates for some of the new models have been pushed back, and they may continue to be pushed back. The demand for available vehicles exceeds the current supply, and the most popular vehicles, both EVs and gas powers, are actually very hard to find right now, and they generally contain a dealer markup of anywhere between $2,000 and $10,000. So this chip shortage is expected to last well into the second half of this year, and that's the bad news. It's a hard time to buy a car right now. The good news is that you can still make your next car electric if you have patience and resourcefulness, and if you use some of the strategies that we'll discuss later in this presentation. So with that caveat, let's get started. Okay, so the first question is, what exactly is an electric vehicle? This picture is not an electric vehicle. It is a gas-powered car. And we know a gas-powered car because, as you can see here on the slide, it has a combustion engine and it receives fuel from its fuel tank. It has a tailpipe that spews out pollution. It runs on gas. Conversely, when you add the green pieces to the picture, you will have what's called a conventional hybrid. And there's a lot of conventional hybrids out on the road today. The most popular example is a Prius hybrid, and they've been around for a long, long time. Conventional hybrids not only have a gas tank and a combustion engine, they also have a rechargeable battery, and that provides power to an electric motor, which drives the wheels forward. With a conventional hybrid, the car itself chooses when to use gas and when to use the battery. So you'll notice that when your conventional hybrid is moving at slow speeds, it will become silent because it's using its rechargeable battery. But when you push down on the accelerator or when you're driving at speeds above 55 miles per hour, that's generally when it kicks into using its combustion engine. So the important thing to know about a conventional hybrid is that the battery recharges itself. You do not need to plug it into an external power source, but the car also is the one that controls when it's using electricity versus when it's using gas. So more recently, a new type of hybrid has become available, and these are called plug-in hybrids, abbreviated as PHEV. And you'll see here in plug-in hybrids, the rechargeable battery is a little bit larger. In fact, it's so large that it can't recharge itself. It has to be recharged using an external power source, where you see the port here, and you have a charger cord that plugs into the port, and on the other end, it plugs into an outlet or a charging station. The advantage of a plug-in hybrid over a conventional hybrid is that you, the owner, the driver of the car, actually now has control over whether the car is using its battery or whether it's using gas. So a lot of EV owners who own plug-in hybrids, they like to almost exclusively use their battery by their choice when they're driving around town. And on long road trips is when they decide to kick into using gas. A lot of plug-in hybrids, the plug-in hybrids obviously don't have as much range as 100% electric EVs, but they usually have between 20 and 30 mile range. And that usually is enough to get you where you need to go on a daily basis. But because they have a gas tank as well, you can use a plug-in hybrid if you have a long commute. If you live in an apartment building and you don't have easy access to EV charging, this might be another instance where you might prefer a plug-in hybrid. Or if you frequently take long trips and you just want the ease of actually kicking into using gas after you've used your available range. So that is a plug-in hybrid. Now let's remove all the red pieces out of this picture. When you do that, you're taking away the combustion engine and the gas tank, and you are left simply with the electrical components that comprise a 100% electric vehicle, otherwise known as an EV or a BEV, which stands for battery electric vehicle. You'll see in this picture that the battery now is very large. And 100% electric vehicles have various ranges depending upon the model. Newer models obviously have longer ranges. Ranges these days are averaging about 250 miles on current new vehicles. And the new ones that are just coming out are pushing 300 miles and over. You'll see here that, again, in order to charge an electric vehicle, you have a port, and you have to have a charger cord. And we will talk about charging a little bit later, but the really brilliant piece of the electric vehicle is that there's no tailpipe and therefore no pollution coming out of the tailpipe. All right. So why go EV? There are many reasons. The first is for your health. The pollutants that come out of a car's tailpipe cause human health problems such as asthma and lung cancer. They damage crops, forests, and buildings, and they contribute to climate change. Conversely, electric vehicles, as I just mentioned, don't have a tailpipe. They don't burn fossil fuels, and therefore they emit no pollutants while driving. Excuse me. So this is a photograph of the San Francisco Bay Area. And unfortunately, there's a lot of smog in this picture. You will probably be familiar with our Spare the Air Day alerts. And that is when pollution is so strong that they encourage people to drive less and to not burn fires in order to help mitigate the smog in the atmosphere. Well, just think, if we all were to switch to electric vehicles, we would have clean air and blue skies and a vast reduction in Spare the Air alert days. So now we move on to the climate benefits of driving an electric vehicle. As you can see here on this pie chart, excuse me. This pie chart is, it represents the state of California's carbon emissions, which are the main cause of global warming and climate change. And you'll see here on this pie chart, you'll see that this yellow section is the biggest slice of the carbon pie, and that is attributed to the transportation sector. And passenger vehicles make up 80% of this transportation sector. So 41% of California's carbon emissions come from the transportation sector. And here in the Bay Area, where we have predominantly community choice energy providers that provide us with renewable energy, carbon-free energy, the slice of the carbon pie that is attributed to transportation is even higher, upwards of 60 to 65%. And that is why Actera is laser focused on encouraging individuals to switch to electric vehicles. We believe that this is one of the single biggest things that any individual can do to combat climate change. There's more reasons, though, to switch to an electric vehicle. Electricity costs less than gas. So if you get rid of your gas-powered car and you make the switch to an electric vehicle, you will see your fuel costs reduced. As a matter of fact, a study from the University of Michigan found that on average, residents save $830 per year by owning an electric vehicle rather than a gas-powered vehicle. And this is $830 worth of savings on your fuel. But not only can you save on fuel costs, recently Consumer Reports came out with a study that, that concluded that EV owners pay less to maintain their vehicle than owners of gas-powered cars. And the difference is actually quite stunning over the lifetime ownership of the vehicle. EV owners pay almost half in maintenance on their cars versus electric cars. And the reason behind this is that electric vehicles contain 10 times fewer moving pieces underneath their hood than gas-powered cars. So EV drivers don't have to fix or replace a lot of different components that gas car owners have to fix or replace, such as air filters and alternators, clutches, fuel filters, fuel injectors, motor mounts, motor oil, mufflers, oil filters, radiators, radiator hoses, spark plugs, the list goes on and on. No biannual emissions tests. So you can see how an EV owner can save a lot of money simply because of the fact that none of these pieces exist in an electric vehicle and therefore do not have to be fixed or maintained. So I really like this infographic. It really gives a summary of the few talking points that we've discussed thus far. you'll see that a 100% electric vehicle is the car in the at the top. And the dollar sign next to it is very small because of the savings in maintenance and fueling. And you'll see that the bubble that comes out of it, those are its carbon emissions, is very small compared to a plug-in hybrid, which has a little bit more emissions and is a little bit more expensive to maintain, but still less expensive than a gas-powered car, which is the car that's at the bottom, which has a large dollar sign next to it and a very huge carbon emissions bubble trailing behind it. So there are many reasons to go EV, and some people here in the Bay Area go EV for this benefit. I love this photograph. You can see it is a picture of a very, very full freeway. But on the right-hand side, there is a car that is traveling in the carpool lane. And if you purchase a new EV, you can apply for what's called a clean air vehicle decal. The current color is yellow. And once you have that vehicle affixed to your, the sticker affixed to your vehicle, you can drive in the carpool lane during rush hour as a single occupant. So there's a little caveat to this wonderful program. There's two caveats, actually. One is that you probably have seen the express lanes that have been coming to the peninsula. EV drivers actually get half off of the tolls in express lanes, but you do have to have a fast track. So, and those express lanes are going to be expanded kind of up and down the 101. So unfortunately, they are taking the place of the carpool lanes in many spots. So you will not be able to travel in the carpool lane for free, but you will have access to the express lane for half price. And just quickly, I'll show you the different stickers that you'll see on some of the EVs. There's a new color that is produced every year. So on the right-hand side, you'll see that those colors are expired, and this is an important consideration if you're purchasing a used EV and you really want access to the carpool lane. You'll want to make sure that you have one of the color stickers that are on the left-hand side. And as I mentioned, the current sticker starting in January 1st of this year is yellow. And the other caveat that I was wanting to mention is that this clean air vehicle program is going to expire in September of 2025. So, so we have about 3 more years in order to take advantage of this really, really wonderful benefit for electric vehicle drivers. And finally, in terms of the benefits of being an EV owner, I think this picture says it all. EVs are simply more fun to drive. And that is because they're run on electricity. So there's instant torque provided to the wheels, which makes for great acceleration. And because it is electric, you have a very smooth and quiet ride. And you really have to get inside one of these vehicles and take a test drive in order to find out for yourself that they really are simply more fun to drive. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about charging your EV. There are 3 levels of charging once you purchase your EV. The first one is the easiest, and you can do it as soon as you bring your new car home. And that is because every new EV comes with a charger cord that I'm pointing to right now. And if you have a 3-pronged outlet located anywhere along the outside of your house or inside your garage, you can plug in your charger cord and start charging your car the moment you bring it home. This is a very slow charge. It's called level 1. It does give you about 40 miles of range overnight. And for many people, that is all they need. The average commute here in the Bay Area is 26 miles per day. So many people, myself included, get by with level 1 charging. However, if you would like to charge your car faster, You do have the option of purchasing and installing what's called a level 2 charger, and I'm referencing that right here. They are generally available for approximately $600. You can get them on Amazon, and you will have to have them installed by an electrician. And additional costs can be incurred when you have your electrician install the level 2 charger, because it does need to have a dedicated 240 volt line. So if your panel needs to be upgraded, and when you need to run the additional wiring, you will anticipate some costs, but rest assured they will be made up by the lower price of electricity. You are also able to secure level 2 charging at public level 2 charging stations, such as this station that is pictured on the right-hand side of the screen. Now, if you are a renter and you rent a house or an apartment, you should know that the state of California has a law that says you are entitled to install a charger at your residence. The landlord cannot refuse you to install the charger as long as you pay for the charger and the installation costs. And we have other solutions for people that live in apartment dwellers that we will discuss shortly. But first, let us talk about the fastest level of charging. This is called DC fast charge. And you'll probably recognize the Tesla superchargers on the left-hand side of the screen. If you don't have a Tesla, you can use several other different types of EV charging providers. The one on the right-hand side is a company called EVgo. These are the fastest charging that you can get. You usually use them when you're going on long road trips, and they're usually located at the side of freeways, and they will give you between 130 and 200 plus miles of range per hour of charging. So let's talk about if you live in an apartment building and there is no charging available to you. There are some solutions that are coming to market, and one of those solutions is called a smart outlet. And that actually the smart outlet enables the landlord to provide you with access to a standard 3-prong outlet. And when they insert the device into the outlet, it allows you, the residents, to actually set up an account and use that smart outlet and be charged only for the amount of electricity that you use. Another option is a concierge service. This is a new company. It's called Currently, and I myself have not used it. I would be very curious to know if anyone here tries this service. This is mobile EV charging, and they bring the mobile EV charging station to you. So they say that they can bring it to you at apartments or at various events or at your workplace. And it's a subscription service. As I said, it is a startup. And it could prove to be a viable option for people who live in apartments or condos. So just briefly, I'll talk again about the charging providers that are available here in the Bay Area. 3 of the largest charging providers are EVgo, Electrify America, and ChargePoint. We recommend that you set up accounts with each of these providers before you get your EV, and that makes charging at their public charging stations very easy once you bring your new EV home. When you become an EV driver, you will likely access PlugShare's website often. It is a way to find all the available public chargers wherever you are located. And you'll see on this map, the orange teardrops are fast chargers. The green are level 2 chargers, and the blue little teardrops are homeowners that if you become a member of their network, they will let you use their home charger if you're ever in a pinch. So that's a really handy additional benefit. EV owners like to be very generous with other EV owners. So there are plenty of options for charging your EV. Most of your charging will be done at home. A study recently said that about 80% of your charging is done at home. But as you can see, there are definitely options for charging out in public. So let's move on now and talk about financial incentives. It is true that new electric vehicles do generally cost more than their gas-powered counterparts. Fortunately, there are a lot of rebates and discounts that are available for purchasing new EVs that help bring down the cost of these vehicles. The big one is the federal tax credit. And this is a credit that you take on your taxes. So how it works is you buy your EV this year. Let's say you go out and buy your EV tomorrow. When it comes time to do your taxes next year, you can claim a $7,500 tax credit if you purchased a 100% electric vehicle. If you purchase a plug-in hybrid, the federal tax credit is reduced to approximately $4,500. Now, the federal tax credit is not fully refundable, so you have to have at least a $7,500 tax liability in order to take advantage of the credit. What it does is it lowers your taxes, but it will not send you a refund check in the mail. Now, something to be aware of when you are considering this special perk is that manufacturers can sell only up to 200,000 EVs before the federal tax credit for that manufacturer becomes phased out. So you might be aware that Tesla and General Motors have already way oversold 200,000 units. And so if you purchase a Tesla or any vehicle made by GM, you will not be able to claim the federal tax credit. All other makes and models currently qualify for the federal tax credit. However, we do want to make you aware of two other manufacturers that are approaching their threshold. Toyota, it is estimated, will sell their 200,000th vehicle sometime this quarter. And that means that when this happens, you will only be able to get the full tax credit through approximately the end of June. So if you're thinking of purchasing a RAV4 Prime plug-in hybrid or a Prius Prime plug-in hybrid, those are the tax credits that will be affected once they have reached their capacity. The same thing holds true with Ford. They are estimated to reach their cap between July and September of this year. And if that happens, you will have until December or the end of this year in order to claim the full credit if you purchase a Ford EV. And so that would affect the Mustang Mach-E and the F-150 Lightning. All right, let's talk about the California rebate now. We are very fortunate to be joined by the administrators of the California rebate. And as I mentioned, they will be hosting a breakout room and you can ask all sorts of additional questions about this particular rebate after the end of the presentation. So I will say for now that the California rebate provides a new EV owner with a $2,000 rebate off of a 100% electric vehicle or $1,000 off a plug-in hybrid. And the way this rebate works is you purchase your new EV and then you take your VIN number and a few other pieces of documentation. You go to their website, you complete a form, you upload your supporting documents, and then you wait. And it could be up to 3 months or possibly longer if there's a big demand for the California rebate. But eventually you will get a check in the mail and it will be either $1,000 or $2,000 rebate for purchasing your electric vehicle. More good news is that for income qualifying residents, and by that we mean individuals who make less than 400% of the federal poverty level, and you can see on this chart, if your household size is 1, if you make less than $51,000 a year, you are income qualifying. And what that means for the California rebate is that they will give you an additional $2,500. So that is in addition to the $1,000 or $2,000 that you get for a total of either $3,500 or $4,500. And finally, There is another rebate. It's a point of sale rebate that you get when you go to the dealer, and it's called the California Clean Fuel Reward. And you have to ask for it when you go to the dealer. Not all dealers are participating, but most are. And when you ask for your California Clean Fuel Reward, they will take either between $450 and $750 off the price of the car. Again, it's based on battery size. So if you're purchasing a plug-in hybrid, you'll get the lower end of that reward. And if you're purchasing a 100% EV, you'll get the full amount of $750. So putting all of these discounts and rebates together, along with the savings on gas and maintenance, we conclude that owning an EV over its lifetime is less expensive than owning a gas-powered car. This is a chart that shows just one example. It shows that the Chevrolet Bolt is about $3,500 cheaper to own over 5 years versus a similar gas vehicle. And you'll see these savings across the board. So I want to talk a little bit about leasing. This is a website that you might want to check out. They provide, they scour the United States for the best lease deals across the country for all EVs, and they will update them, I think, weekly. Now, this slide I took from before COVID, when there were really pretty good deals, lease deals to be found. But the pandemic and the chip shortage has changed everything. It's really knocked the whole industry on its head. But hopefully we will come back to a time when there are good lease deals on offer once again. And when that time, oh, somebody needs to mute themselves. Thank you. And when that time comes, if you go to this website, you'll be able to compare lease deals and hopefully find a really great deal on your vehicle lease. Now, I do want to say that if you lease a vehicle, you may or may not be able to take advantage of the $7,500 federal tax credit. The way that you are able to take advantage of it is if the financing arm of the manufacturer from whom you are leasing the car, if they are willing to pass through the federal tax credit to you, then that will lower your lease payments. And that means that you are actually getting to take advantage of this federal tax credit. But it's the financing arm that actually owns the car when you lease it. And therefore they are the ones that technically get to claim that federal tax credit unless they pass it on to you. And some manufacturers for some models are willing to pass through that tax credit. In the past, Chevy Bolt and Nissan Leaf have been willing to pass through that federal tax credit if you lease. I do know that some of the newer EVs that are coming to market are not giving you the pass through if you lease, such as the Ford Mach-E and the Hyundai Ioniq 5. So you will have to find out from the financing arm of the manufacturer if that is something they're willing to do if you lease the vehicle. Let's move on and talk about some of the models that are out there for you to purchase. We have 3 popular models that are listed on this slide. A lot of people know about the Tesla Model Y. It is actually the best-selling electric vehicle in America for many good reasons. It has amazing range. It was the leader. It was one of the firsts, and it has high owner satisfaction. Let's follow that by the Chevy Bolt. The Chevy Bolt is a wonderful, very practical, affordable electric vehicle that gets a great range. You are probably aware that the Bolt is has currently been recalled because of their battery packs, and they have not been able to produce them because of this recall. Fortunately, they just announced that they are starting up production again in early April. So hopefully this spring, they will come back onto the market and you will be able to purchase a new Chevy Bolt once again. Meanwhile, if you are in the market for a used Chevy Bolt, you might want to stop into our breakout room that talks about plug-in hybrids and buying used EVs, because Al of Greenlight Auto will talk about the number of bolts that he's been able to procure that are currently available for sale. And let's talk about the Nissan Leaf. This is really, the Nissan Leaf predates the Tesla models. Once again, high owner satisfaction. You also get a $250 credit for fast charging and a $350 credit for Turo car rentals if you purchase the Nissan Leaf. And that Turo car rental credit is for if you want to take long trips and you don't want to take your Nissan Leaf, you can swap it out and rent a gas-powered car for those long rides. So the only one of these three vehicles that still qualifies for the federal tax credit is the Nissan Leaf. Make sure that if you're purchasing a Nissan Leaf, you want to be able to distinguish between the Nissan Leaf, which gets a 150-mile range, and the Nissan Leaf Plus, which has a greater range of between 215 and 226 miles. Okay, some new models that have become extremely popular. The Ford Mustang Mach-E, it has amazing range, available all-wheel drive, and Consumer Reports just selected it as their top EV pick for 2022. Let's also talk about the VW ID4. Again, 250-mile range. It has 3 years of unlimited DC fast charging at Electrify America chargers, and that's a great perk. Both of these vehicles still qualify for the federal tax credit. And finally, these are the newest of the new models. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 has been available since January. Again, excellent range. The Ioniq 5 also has what it's called ultra fast charging. In ideal situations, it can actually get up to 65 miles of range in 5 minutes if you're using a DC fast charger at really ideal conditions. It also provides vehicle to load power. What that means is that it has outlets inside the car, and you can plug any appliance into that outlet, your TV, a blender, your laptop, and it will power your appliance. And then we have the Kia EV6, and this vehicle has only just become available in the last couple of weeks. It's extremely popular in Europe. Similar to the Hyundai Ioniq 5, it has extremely fast charging and vehicle to load power, as well as self-parking abilities and highway autonomous driving. Both of these vehicles qualify for the federal tax credit. All right, we are winding down. I want to talk really briefly about some of the plug-in hybrids that are available. These include the Kia Sorento plug-in hybrid. We're featuring this vehicle because it actually has third row seating and can fit 6 passengers in its cab. Additionally, if you want a large car, you can go for the Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid, which gets 32-mile range before it kicks into its gas engine for an additional 488 gas miles. And then finally, the Toyota RAV4 plug-in hybrid. It's one of the most popular plug-in hybrids of all time. The non-hybrid version is extremely popular, and the plug-in hybrid has kind of gone off the charts. If you want one of these, you are going to have to wait for quite a while. But the people who actually acquire them say it's worth the wait. I have a typo there. You get 2 years of free scheduled maintenance, 24-hour roadside assistance. All-wheel drive is standard. The federal tax credit applies. And even though it's a plug-in hybrid, the battery is large enough that it qualifies for the full federal tax credit. Okay, rounding out this conversation, I wanted to give you some purchase options or tips because, as I mentioned, it is a really, really tough market out there. So how are you going to get a hold of an electric vehicle when inventory is so tight? The first option is to wait until supply increases and markups go away. So if you don't need to buy a car right away, you could wait until the chip shortage has been resolved. That is one option. The second option is that if you are planning on purchasing an electric vehicle in 6 months to a year from now, if you're not really ready just yet, but you envision making the switch in the next 6 months to a year. If you can find a dealer that is not marking up their models, our recommendation is to order it now. And this is because it will likely take you between 6 and 12 months to take delivery of this vehicle. So, for example, the estimated delivery for the Tesla Y long range trim is September. So, that being said, if you know that you're going to make the switch in about a year's time, order it now because you are going to wait. Now, that is not to say that you have to wait. If you really want to purchase a car now, not all the vehicles that are on dealers' lots have been pre-ordered. They usually have some vehicles on the lot that were reserved or that were pre-ordered and that were claimed, but the customer changed their mind and therefore they are available to sell. However, I can't state more than enough that you're going to have to shop around in order to avoid the dealer markups. Shopping around is imperative right now. I have two examples of markups that have varied widely in the past couple of weeks. So last month, Tracy Hyundai's markup on an Ioniq 5 was $3,500 versus San Jose Hyundai's markup of $5,000. So last month, if you were willing to go out to Tracy, you would save money on the markup. Now, 1 month later, San Jose's markup has gone down to $3,000 as well. So sometimes it pays to wait to have the markups go down, and it definitely pays to shop around. If you want to go to Palm Springs and have a really fun weekend while you pick up your Hyundai Ioniq 5, the Hyundai dealer in Palm Springs is charging MSRP, no markup. One more example is that one of our EV ambassadors recently discovered that Morgan Hill Ford is selling the Mustang Mach-E at MSRP, while some Bay Area dealers are charging a $5,000 markup. So this person had to order her car and designate Morgan Hill Ford as the dealership where she would take delivery, and it is expected to arrive this fall. So those are some tips in how to navigate this really tough market right now. Encourage you to shop around, be joyful. Oh, and Barbara once again turned on her mic. Thank you, Barbara, for muting. All right, we're concluding now. The future is bright for EVs. I will not list all of what these manufacturers are doing, but the end note is really, really indicative. General Motors aims to end sales of US gas-powered light-duty vehicles by 2035. You might have seen this commercial if you watched the Super Bowl. Sopranos fans will recognize this. It features Chevrolet's upcoming 100% electric Silverado truck. The Super Bowl is one of the most watched sporting events in the world, and 6 of the 7 Super Bowl car ads featured EVs. If that's the case, you know that the automobile industry has decided to pivot to electric vehicles. In fact, cars.com saw a 2,000% increase in visits to pages for electric vehicles that were featured during the game. So EVs have arrived. In conclusion, automobile manufacturers are finally pivoting. There are 30 new models coming to market this year. The federal infrastructure bill includes $5 billion for charging infrastructure. Lifetime ownership costs for EVs are less than gas-powered cars. EVs are good for the planet. New models are achieving 250 to 300 miles of range. Fast charging is getting very, very fast, and EVs are simply more fun to drive. And because of all of those reasons, Actera believes that 2022 is the year of the EV. So what I would like to do now is open the breakout rooms to our room hosts. And we ask that everybody else please stay in the main room for a short presentation on Actera's EV equity goals. while the hosts enter their rooms so that they can be ready for when everyone else joins. And so now I would like to hand it over to Linda Hutchins-Knowles, who will talk about EV access to charging. Linda.
Thank you, Ariane. That was fantastic, amazing. Thank you for all the information you shared. Yeah, I do want to just quickly, briefly talk about the need for equitable access to charging. If you could go to the next slide. As we talked about, it's a little bit harder to get charging if you live in an apartment or a condo versus a single family home. And this chart shows that our statewide code, building code, is not equitable. Since 2015, every new single family home in the state is required to be pre-wired for EV charging. But when that law was adopted, only 3% of apartments and condos are required to have EV charging. Right now, the newly passed or newly adopted Cal Green Code is bringing that up to 40%, which is a big improvement, but it's far short of where we need to be. So if you can go to the next slide, Ariane. Octera is helping to lead a coalition called the EV Charging Access for All Coalition. We are growing by leaps and bounds. I actually updated this slide, Ariane, but didn't show up here. 108 organizations, not 22. I have to update that for you. We have lots of organizations, companies, faith communities, legislators, and individuals who are supporting our coalition. We are advocating that the Building Standards Commission mandate 100% access for EV charging in multifamily buildings, for the new buildings. We'll also need to get working on the existing buildings, but for sure we shouldn't be building new buildings that cannot charge electric vehicles for all of the residents with parking. If you would like to help this effort, we would love to welcome more folks into our growing coalition. There's a link in the, and Irvin will put it in the chat, he just did, thank you, Irvin. That's a little, basically an interest form to show if you're interested in supporting us. We have ways to help, from a simple email to Governor Newsom to more lengthy support depending on your time availability and your passion. You could write letters to the editor. You could call your council, your Congress member, actually your assembly member or senator. We're going to have a legislative solution to this issue. So there's lots of ways to help. And one more slide for me before I wrap up, and we'll get into the breakout rooms. If you could speak up tonight for EV equity, this link will take you to a pre-written email to Governor Newsom. We believe that with his leadership, we'll be able to get the EV equity we need, but without it, we have a much harder path to hoe. So if you would like to ask Governor Newsom to put his money where his mouth is, he's mandated that we have to have all EVs by 2035, but we need a place to charge them, especially the residents of apartments and condos. So this, you can send him an email at that link. You also can personalize it if you want to adapt it. So thank you so much.